It's a big year for Sam Pittman and the Arkansas Razorbacks. After a 4-8 season, you were looking to bounce back, and it's not going to be easy with the new look SEC. We take a deep dive into the Arkansas Razorbacks and look at what is this team going to look like in 2024. Before we do that, though, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like the video. It goes a long way in supporting me and my efforts in terms of keeping this deep dive series alive, keeping the channel going. You guys are the reason why this channel is where it's at. We are on our way to 5,000 subscribers, and that's because of you. You make this possible. You make this a fun channel to continue doing, and I need your support. I need your help in getting us to that goal. We're going to find a way to do it. So make sure, like I said, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you like the video, and let's dive into the Arkansas Razorbacks in 2024. We'll start with the coaching staff. Bobby Petrino is back in town, and you have Travis Williams coaching the defense. I think that there are two units that could really do better in 2024. A group that only scored 26.6 points per game in 2023, a defense that allowed nearly 28 points in terms of points per game. I think that both sides could take steps forward. Both sides could finish better because when you finish 69th in scoring and 80th in scoring defense, you're going to see that this group needs to take steps forward. That being said, both sides of the ball have exciting players. It's just a matter of can you handle life in the SEC? Some of these players are coming from drastically different levels of competition, and that's going to be a big question for a group that is looking to, you know, play with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to be an underdog after a disappointing season, and Sam Pittman arguably has is coaching for his job. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. A part of this team, this journey, if you will, that is going to play a big role in the 2024 season. Now, that being said, you lost some talent via the transfer portal, and that obviously hurt after a 4-8 season. That kind of adds insult to injury. But Sam Pittman did a good job of getting players to fill some of those positions and elevate others as well. So the one that everyone's keeping an eye on is Taylor Green. That was one of the more interesting additions, the former Boise State quarterback. We'll talk about him more in just a second. He is someone that's going to play a big role and has a huge impact on this offense one way or another. We'll talk about that, like I said, in a little bit. Brought in a couple of transfers on the offensive line. Addison Nichols comes in from Tennessee. Fernando Carmona comes in from San Jose State. Quinton Jackson, the running back from Utah, was a huge addition after you lost Rocket Sanders. So there's plenty of talent coming in to fill some of those roles. It's just a matter of what is the ceiling for this group? Because when you look at some of the players they lost, you lost some rotational players, some backups, but you also lost your starting quarterback in KJ Jefferson. You lost your starting linebacker in Chris Paul Jr. You lost Jaheim Thomas at linebacker as well. You lost some players that played big roles last year. So what are those new players able to do? What are they going to do for you in terms of replacing that talent or even elevating that position? That's going to be a big question. And we'll dive right into it. Taylor Green is going to be under the spotlight. He is going to be scrutinized quite a bit, and that's not any different than it was last year. Problem was that Taylor Green can play at a high level. He can take Arkansas to new heights when he's playing at his peak. The problem is that the consistency just isn't there yet. Now, when you saw him at his peak, Boise State was really fun to watch. Boise State was a really good offense, but when he was struggling, it was an offense that was, I wouldn't say bad, but it was not very good. It was not very consistent, and it was not fun to watch if you're a Boise State fan. So there's a lot of volatility with his game, and Arkansas has to find a way to hone that in. And Petrino is a good option. I think that he runs a scheme that fits what Taylor Green will do really well. You're going to see him throw the football. You're also going to see him as a factor in the rushing attack. And that's huge because you need a quarterback that can be electric. And Petrino is a good offensive mind. And this is an offense that needs a good offensive mind to turn this talent into a productive group. When you look at what this group did last year, it was not good. This was a really bad offense at times. and you need to find ways to elevate this offense, elevate this team, and Jalen Green will play a big role. If he's not able to get the job done, you have to turn to two freshmen in Malachi Singleton, KJ Jackson. You don't want to do that, but also you might have to if Green's just not playing a level of ball that's going to make you excited about your options going forward. The rushing attack, the running back position should be in good hands. When you look at Jaquin Jackson, a big player at 6'2", 235 pounds. Rashad Dubinion is back after being in a crowded backfield. And you also bring in Rodney Hill from the transfer portal. That was a huge addition for Arkansas. And you're seeing a really deep group. So running the football shouldn't be a problem, especially with the offensive line that we'll talk about in a little bit. The pass catchers are probably going to be another group to keep an eye on because you have players that are capable of doing a lot of exciting things. The tight end position is very deep. You have Luke Haas coming back for Keys Gums. You have Ty Washington. You bring in a couple other transfers. Tight end should be a deep group. The wide receiver position is where most of the questions arise. Andrew Armstrong is a good player with a good frame, 764 yards last year and 5 touchdowns in his first season with the Razorbacks. After that, though, what are you going to get? Isaac Tesla could be one of those guys. Isaiah Satanga is another one. Tyron Broden. You have players that can do things, but it's just a matter of what is this group going to do to improve from their 107th finish in terms of passing yards per game. Jalen Green obviously plays a huge role, and what if you're able to find chemistry? If these wide receivers find chemistry and the tight ends too, with Green, you're going to find that life is much better. Life is much easier for this passing attack than it was in 2024. But again, you have to get the reps in. You have to be able to play at a high level in terms of playing in the SEC. This is a schedule that is not easy, and we'll go over that later in this video. But this is a group that will have to step up. This is a group that must play better than they did last year. And it's really not going to be a matter of if Green has time to make plays because I really like what this offensive line is going to be. It's just a matter of the skill positions doing their part. We talked about Fernando Carmona coming in from San Jose State. That was an underrated addition, and he is an experienced player who should step up and secure that left tackle position. Tykees Crawford is another player that has plenty of experience, and this is going to be a really big offensive line. Really fun group to watch. Addison Nichols played 14 games for Tennessee, never got a start, should take over at the center position. Josh Braun is a very experienced player, the most experienced player on this offensive line. And then another transfer, Keyshawn Blackstock comes in from Michigan State. So there's plenty of talent to go around, and there's some experience at certain positions, more obviously at others. It's just a matter of finding that chemistry, finding ways to communicate. Because again, two of these guys played for Arkansas last year. The other three are going to be new faces to this program, to this system, and to the rest of their teammates. So that's going to play a big role. And behind them is underrated players, but inexperienced players. You look at what they have; they don't have a ton of experience. Josh Reed's the only exception to that with 24 games played. He'll be in that rotation at tackle if Carmona and Blackstock aren't able to get the job done. But I really like what this group has. And again, Sam Pittman needs this to go well. He needs his team to play at a high level because his job quite literally depends on it. Now, flipping to the defensive side of the ball, this is where things get really fun. This is an exciting group with plenty of talent, and it all starts up front. The defensive line could be one of the better groups in the SEC, even in college football. Landon Jackson is someone who decided to transfer from LSU, and it was one of the best decisions he's probably made in his career. 13 and a half tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, a productive player for Arkansas. Has a really interesting frame at 6'7", 282 pounds, something that will catch the eye of the NFL scouts that are watching their games. And opposite of him is probably where things get the most interesting. Anton Junke is going to be an interesting player to watch from Albany. After everyone saw what happened with Jared Verse, and Albany has been kind of on under the spotlight for a number of players. You saw a number of their players this year in the transfer portal go to Power 5 programs, go to big time programs in the Big Ten and the SEC, and he is another one of them. 21 and a half tackles for loss, 15 sacks. at the FCS level. Now, doing that in the SEC, I mean, if you do that in the SEC, holy cow, are you a talented player? Holy cow, are you going to play at a high level? But I think that he is going to take a step back in production. That being said, he should be an impact player. And this is going to be a fun group to watch on the edge. They have plenty of talent. Another player to keep an eye on, Quincy Rhodes, a freshman who the staff already likes. They like what they see from him, and he should be someone that is going to contribute sooner rather than later. So keep an eye on him as well. Flipping to the interior, Eric Gregory and Cameron Ball don't have the production that I think a lot of people just think that a defensive lineman should have. But when you're playing the tackle position, especially in the SEC, you're not going to have the production unless you're an absolute superstar. That being said, Eric Gregory and Cameron Ball are very good players. I expect a lot of big things from both of them. Cameron Ball was already getting rave reviews coming out of spring camp. So that's a player to keep an eye on. I think that he is set for a big season for Arkansas, and this will be a really fun group to watch. A really talented defense, and that's going to make life easy for the linebackers. A linebacker group that is inexperienced. Again, I kind of keep using that word with a lot of these teams, but this is an inexperienced group. That being said, I don't have a ton of concerns about them getting up to speed. Brad Spence only had 16 tackles last year, but he is someone that everyone expects to just figure it out and step and make that transition seamlessly. Xavier Sori comes in from Georgia, and even Steven Dix comes in from Florida State. You have players that are going to figure into the rotation. And I think that there's going to be some young talent that steps up as well. Carson Dean, a 6'4", 234-pound freshman, who is already on campus and ready to go. Bradley Shaw isn't on campus yet, but he is someone that is expected to be part of that rotation as well. So there's a lot of young and eager players ready to prove their worth, and that makes for a really exciting defense, a really exciting front group. The secondary is another one of those underrated groups. When you look at what they're capable of doing, you should be excited if you're an Arkansas Razorback fan. And last year, this group finished 32nd against the pass, and they bring in a couple players that will be contributors. But I think the biggest one with getting Danico Slaughter was a surprise. The Tennessee transfer obviously decided he needed a new home, stays within the SEC, and will play a big role at safety for Arkansas. Marquise Robinson plays at cornerback for this team, and he'll have I think maybe another big year. 3 interceptions last year, and he is going to be someone to keep an eye on. And teams might avoid him a little bit more, so that puts more pressure on Jalen Braxton to play a little bit at a higher level. TJ Metcalf could be the same thing at the nickelback position, and after that, you're looking at players that could figure into the rotation. This will be a group that is deep and a group that is very fun to watch. Hudson Clark should be in the rotation as well. He's a multi-year experienced player. So he is someone that plays at the safety position for this team that can be a veteran and be a leader, get everybody up to speed. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the starting lineup as well. Him, Jaden Johnson, and Danico Slaughter will be guys to keep an eye on. Jaheim Singletary, the former Georgia transfer, will be in a factor as well at corner. So if Braxton's not getting the job done, or just even if they like Singletary better, there's still plenty of time for guys to change in terms of their roles in this defense. But again, this is a defense that if you're an Arkansas fan, you should be pretty excited. It's obviously going to be difficult when you play in the SEC, but again, there is a lot to like about this team. When you go to strengths and concerns, the strengths are really good strengths. I think that when you look at the defensive line, there's a lot to be excited about for Arkansas. We talked about what Landon Jackson can do. You talked about some of the new faces that are ready to step up. The coaching staff likes a lot of the young guys that are coming into campus that are going to play big roles. So the defensive side of the ball is really an exciting thing for this team. Running back is also a strength. We talked about that. Jaquindon Jackson was a big time addition. We'll see what he can do with this new offense. Rashad Dubinion, Rodney Hill. Again, that's going to be really exciting. Tight end is a deep group, so maybe tight end depth, even though the experience isn't there, you have plenty of players that can take a step forward, and we'll see what they can do in Petrino's offense as well. quarterback depth is a concern. If Taylor Green goes down, you're looking at two freshmen to take over. So what does that mean? What are they capable of doing? Hopefully, we don't have to see that unless it's in relief in terms of the Arkansas is winning games by a lot, and you're just seeing what they can do against backup guys. Wide receiver has could be a concern, but what do they have in terms of depth? We have some guys that we know what they're capable of doing, but there is not nearly enough depth right now for us to be excited about that. O-line depth could be a concern, not nearly as much as some of these other concerns, but O-line depth to me really is a concern. You have some really talented players to start, but who is going to step up and be those guys? Again, a lot of these concerns, it's not I'm giving up on that group. It's just something to look for in fall camp. What is this group able to do in terms of creating depth? Do they have those players on the roster that can step up in a big way? X factor is going to be Taylor Green. We talked about that. If he is playing at a high level, if he's staying healthy, then Arkansas is in good hands. But if not, then it's going to be quite the long road for the Arkansas Razorbacks, especially when you look at this schedule. The 2024 schedule with an over and under of 5 wins, that says what Vegas thinks of this team in terms of the schedule. The first game, obviously, against Arkansas Pine Bluff should be a win. A trip to Oklahoma State probably is a loss. The Cowboys are a very good team that has a ton of experience. But again, Arkansas could be that surprise team that you always see a handful of games that surprise you. And Arkansas could be that team that surprises. So I'm not writing that up as a loss automatically. Going to be tough, though. That is going to be a tough game, especially on the road. UAB, don't really have any concerns there. So at worst, to me, you're 2-1. At best, you're 3-0. That's with a ceiling of 7-5, a floor of 3-9. You really have to win those two of those three games to get you to that, and then after that, you don't really have any concerns. If you finish 3-9 or miss a bowl games, Pittman's probably gone. So that's really what you're focusing on is you're just trying to get to 6 wins. But it's going to be hard to find more than 7 on this schedule because a trip to Auburn, an Auburn team that is going to be much better in 2024, that is going to be a tough game. Texas A&M in Arlington is going to be tough. And then you get Tennessee and LSU right after that. So that's a tough 4-game stretch that probably doesn't yield more wins than losses, but you just never know, I guess. Mississippi State is one of the bottom feeders of the SEC right now, but who knows what they'll look like towards the end of the year. Jeff Levy is coming in to take over that program, and we'll see if that's going to be looking like a different program or if they're just going to be struggling once again. Ole Miss and Texas after that is definitely not a great way to start the end of your season, to start the month of November. Louisiana Tech will be a win and a trip to Missouri. So last 3 of those last 4 games are brutal. So Missouri, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, and Tennessee right now. Those are 5 games where if you have to lean one way, you're probably leaning a loss for Arkansas. And after that, it's the other 7 games that you're trying to figure out how do you win 6 of those. And that's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough schedule for Arkansas to win. But when we just go through the depth chart here, there are things to be excited about. Arkansas has talent to compete in the SEC. There's a reason why they've been in the SEC and they've had success under Pittman. This is a staff that is trying to bring in talent to compete at that level. And again, making a bowl game is going to be a successful season. There's talent to do it, but depth is going to be the biggest question. Can Pittman find depth at certain positions? Can this team gel quickly with so many new faces coming into the picture? If that's the answer is yes, then maybe you pull off an upset here and there. But also you're finding ways again just to get to 6 wins, keeping Pittman around because I really like what Sam Pittman can do. But eventually the money's going to talk, and eventually not winning enough games is going to hurt him. That being said, there is reason to be optimistic if you're an Arkansas fan, even in a tough conference like the SEC.